It's always a good thing to be starting a lesson with a scripture reading. You can't beat that kind of way to start. Good to be back with you tonight. Good to see this good number, and we do have some visitors with us, and we're grateful to have you as well. Tonight we want to talk to you about a very familiar passage. You knew by the picture more than likely before you put the words up there. You know, a Jew didn't know a good Samaritan, did they? But Jesus is going to tell them about one. And this lawyer, willing to justify himself, said, well, who is my neighbor? How far does this go? 2 doors down? 3 doors down? Around the block? Well, we know better, don't we? But this is not just a lesson about something that you already know. This is a lesson I hope that you will take to heart and that you will make application in your life to the things that we talk about, and that if you were in a situation like the Good Samaritan, that you would do what he did. I'd like to think that if I came upon a situation like that I would not pass by, as we shall see that 2 others did. So tonight, as we continue our reading in the same chapter, Luke chapter 10, but he, wanting to justify himself, said to Jesus, and who is my neighbor? How far does it go? Who do I have to take care of? Then Jesus answered and said, a certain man went down from Jerusalem to Jericho. And that is the proper way to say it geographically, because Jerusalem was up here and the road down to Jericho was just that. It was down. Now, how did the inspired writer know that? Because he was inspired. And there's no mistake. When somebody says he went up to a certain city or down to a certain city, you can just mark it down that geographically that is true. And you know what? Critics of the Bible have tried to prove them wrong. But guess what? Every one of them is right. Just another little faith-building tidbit that is helpful to us in our studies. So he to Jericho and fell among thieves, who stripped him. You imagine being on a road and this is what happens to you? Stripped him of his clothing, wounded him. It was wounded, that doesn't sound too bad, does it? We just got wounded. Could be just a flesh wound like the old cowboy movies used to say. No. And they left him, leaving him what? Half dead. So the word wounded, they nearly put him 6 feet under, didn't they? Now, by chance, a certain priest came down that road. And when he saw him, he passed by on the other side. And we're going, when I was a little boy, we used to go, oh, shame on you. Oh, man, you got that. You were in bad trouble. Shame on you. You didn't have a friend in this world because you done been shamed on. And here is a religious man who of all people would know to be good and to be helpful. Not always true, and in this case it wasn't. Likewise, verse 32, a Levite, when he arrived at the place, came and looked. Get a good 8x10 glossy of the situation. And passed by on the other side. He stopped. Yeah, nothing I can do. Really? But, verse 33, a certain Samaritan, as he journeyed, came where he was. And when he saw him, he had compassion. The priest and the Levite might have had sympathy and said, oh, man, that boy's beat up bad. Well, sure wouldn't want to be in his place. And you know what? I've been guilty of that. Nobody needs this lesson more than me. And I better hurry up and learn it, hadn't I? I'm not getting any younger. He saw him, he had compassion. And the word compassion, when it says that about Jesus, he had compassion on the multitude. He did something about it. If they were hungry, he did something about it. If they needed teaching, he did something about it. And this Samaritan man had compassion. 34, so he went to him and bandaged his wound, poured oil and wine, and he set him on his own animal, and brought him to an inn and to take care of him. And on the next day, when he departed, he took out 2 denarii, gave them to the innkeeper, and said to him, take care of him, and whatever more you spend when I come again, I will repay you. Is this going above and beyond the call? Remember when Jesus tells us in the Sermon on the Mount to go the extra mile? There's a good reason for that. We need to go the extra mile. Jesus said if a soldier comes by and demands that you go with him a mile, and that was the law, you go with him too. You know what that soldier is going to say about you, or the Jews? You know, they're not such bad people after all. You know the things I've heard? That guy was really nice. He went 2 miles. Go the extra mile. And that phrase is still used today, whether people know what they're talking about or not. He went the extra mile. Where'd that come from? I don't know. I just heard it all my life. It's from the Word of God. We need to go the extra mile. And so this Samaritan, by the way, the Jews had said they had rather take food from the mouth of a dog than from the hand of a Samaritan. You talk about racist, prejudice. God's people were that way. How far down they had gone. So he told the innkeeper, here's the money. I'm going to leave, and when I come back, if you anymore, I will repay you. So Jesus asked the lawyer, who was willing to justify himself, so which of these 3 do you think was neighbor to him who fell among the thieves? Would you have a hard time answering that question? He said, well, he who showed mercy on him. Then Jesus said to him, go and do likewise. All right, boy, I feel good because that good Samaritan did what he was supposed to do, and that lawyer heard what he needed to do and who his neighbor was. Who is my neighbor? Do you have to know who he is? How far down the block do you have to know these people? No, it's wherever and whoever, whatever color of skin, whatever they look like, whether they're rich or poor, should not matter. We need to be that good neighbor. Now, I want you to, we used to say when we was little kids, you just pretend like you're the only one here, okay? And am I willing to justify myself? And well, who is it that I have to take care of? Have you ever passed by a situation where somebody needed help and you could have, but you didn't? Vernon Teagarden, who's been here for a couple of meetings, I think, hasn't he? When we lived in Salem, Ohio, he attended there. One Sunday morning, he helped a woman with a flat tire, he and his family. They stopped, and they were late for services. Brother Hake, do you think he should have done that? I said, yes. Yes, I do. And we should. We see these opportunities, and I know nowadays, somebody alongside the road, you have to be careful, you have to be cautious. But we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. I have a question. In this story, the 3 characters, which one are you? You're one of them. Are we passersby? We like the priest and the Levite? Are we saying, whoo, he sure could use help? You know, it could be your neighbor. It may not have been had the snot beat out of him. He just may need help. Oh, look what time it is. You know, it might rain. I need to mow my yard, and he can't. Like he might not get his lawnmower started, and you know how to do that. If that's my neighbor, he's in real trouble. But if you can help him, you help him, okay? You do that. Don't walk by. Don't think of an excuse. Are we like the Good Samaritan? We just take the time, stop, and help. Can we do that? It's not the one, well, I'd like to think that I would be like the Good Samaritan, but it's what God says about you. I might tell you all the good things that I've done, but God knows the other side. He knows the entire story, doesn't he? And on the day of judgment, I'm not going to fool God, am I? Not at all. The question of the day was the question that Jesus asked the lawyer. So, which of these three do you think was neighbor to him who fell among the thieves? That's a pointed question, isn't it? But an easy answer. And he answered correctly. Do you think the priest and the Levi didn't have excuses like this one? You know, if he got beat up and he got robbed, if I linger here too long, they might be behind that big boulder over there just waiting for me to get down and start helping them, and they're going to jump me. Fear. So we don't help. Or, hey, I'm no doctor. He's bleeding. I can't help. Really? Or, I didn't come down this road just for a stroll. I'm on my way home or I'm on my way to business and I'd like to help, but I'll be late to my appointment if I help him. Excuses. You know, we dress them up and make them look real good to ourselves, but not to God. 11 things that the Good Samaritan did. We'll go through them quickly. He saw him. He had compassion. He went to him, bandaged his wounds. He poured in oil and wine, which was already an expense. And he set him on his own animal. And as we say, he carried him to the inn. He brought him to an inn. He took care of him while he was there. And when he had to leave on the next day, when he departed, he took out 2 denarii, a few days of labor money, and gave them to the innkeeper and said, you take care of him. Didn't just leave him there, but said, you take care of him. And he said, whatever more you spend, I'll take care of it when I get back. Thus the reason he's called a Good Samaritan. Let's be like that. If there were a definition of the 2 words Good Samaritan, and somebody looked up the definition of those 2 words, would our picture be there? Would they think of you? Yes, she is that way. Anytime somebody needs help, she is right there. He is right there. We had a lady in the congregation that just took her sweeper, her mop, and her bucket and went to the house, knocked on the door, said, I'm coming in to help you. I'm here. And you know what we generally say? When we ask somebody, do you need any help? What do you say? What do you say? Well, I guess I can get by. I've been in Murfreesboro, Tennessee for a week, so don't, pardon me for... See, we hear the announcements. We can read it in the bulletin list. Do thou likewise, Jesus said. Okay? Pretty simple, isn't it? Are we like the rich man of Luke chapter 12? Remember him? I will tear down my barns and I will build bigger barns. I, me. I'm going to do this. Who had he forgotten? Eat, drink, be merry, for you much goods laid up for many years, he thought. He thought. But is that what happened? Was he too rich? Can you be that way? Hey, I worked hard for that, I'll have you know, and I've taken all this time and all these years to save all this money, and I'll be shot before I start handing it out to some poor people who made their bed and let them lie in it. He went down that road, and what happened to him, and I'm not just going to throw my money away. Is that our attitude? Is that how we feel? Anybody ever call you selfish? Stingy? How'd you like it if you did? Or am I selfish? Say it that way. Selfish. Selfish. It's all about me. We talk about selfies. How about selfish? How am I doing? And it's easy to be selfish, isn't it? You ever have one piece of gum in your pocket and you're going to chew it later? And somebody says, "You got any gum?" You don't want to give it up? What are you? Because I'm going to die if I don't chew that piece of gum. Because I couldn't give it to you. That's the beginning of selfish. How many mothers have been unselfish? This old song of Jimmy Dean of 50 years ago, maybe, said, when there's 2 hungry boys and 3 people, who does without the pie? Oh, she says, I didn't want one anyway. Why'd she do that? Out of love. Just like the Good Samaritan, out of love. Was he gonna be rewarded when he came back to that inn to help? Was that innkeeper going to say, "You've won the lottery and you've been repaid above and beyond"? No. It was all on him. Too rich, too selfish, too much pride. Look out. Like the rich man here in Luke chapter 12. He was too busy to die, wasn't he? He thought he was. The next 2 words said, "But God." Whoa. You know, I know the date of my birth. You want me to tell you again when it was, in case you've forgotten? For those of you who are new here, nearly at least once or twice a year, I let everybody know my birthday was March 20th. See? But anyway, do we know when we're going to die? I've already got my little plaque made out. March 20th, 1945, dash. Someday somebody will chisel in that final date. And so will you. Somebody do that to you. You know your birth date, but not your death date. This guy found out his death date. But God said, "Fool," what's the next words? "This night thy soul shall be required of thee. Then who shall all these things be that you have provided?" You ever think about that? I can't die now because I've got a great grandbaby out in California. I want to see her grow up and go to college. And I'll be 100 years old. Am I assured of that? I've heard of preachers dying in the pulpit. What a place to go, huh? Preaching the Word. But be that as it may, we don't know the date of our death, but God does. And He told that man, "You forgot me." And literally He said, "Fool, this night thy soul shall be required of thee." Are we like those in James 2:15? Look at this. "If a brother or sister be naked and destitute of daily food," does that mean totally stripped, not a stitch on? No, you don't have to be naked totally to be naked and destitute without food. Do we have to wait till somebody is starving to death and comes crawling to our door before we help them? Shake your head this way. No. If a brother or sister is in that situation, destitute of daily food, and one of you says to them, "Depart in peace, be warmed and filled," but you do not give them the things which are needed for the body, what does it profit? If that were you that needed it, and you ask somebody for help, and they say, "Bless your heart, bless your heart. I see your situation, but bye." When you could help, but you choose not to. What does it? Are we accusing the priest and Levite while we do the same thing that they did? Do I need to step up to the lick log and admit that's a picture of me? Remember what Jesus said in Matthew 15 and verse 7? "Well, Isaiah, write about you, speak of you. He painted in big, broad, beautiful strokes or ugly strokes about you." Is that me? Is that me? Am I like these characters who forget to help? Are we accusing the priest and the Levite while we do the same thing? Listen to Paul in Romans 2 and verse 1. Therefore, you are inexcusable, O man, whoever you are who judge. For in whatever you judge another, you condemn yourself. For you who judge practice the same thing. Am I like the priest and the Levite? I'd like to think and I'd like to shout, no, that's not me. But in reality, what am I? What am I? How am I doing? In Micah 6 and verse 8, the prophet said, He has shown you, O man, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you but to do justly? How am I doing? Do I treat people fairly? Do I? To love mercy? Am I merciful? Am I? To walk humbly with your God? How do you think Jesus walked? Perfect in every way. Did He do justly? Did He love mercy? Did He walk humbly on this earth? Yes, He did. Yes, He did. Matthew 5:44. But I say it to you, love your enemies. Do what? Do you know what she did to me and you want me to love her? That ain't going to happen. That wasn't a suggestion. Or if you feel like it. Or if you kind of had a good feeling before about this person. But I say unto you, love your enemies. Bless those who curse you. Do good to those who hate you. Excuse me? I work with this individual and he's done everything to undermine me. We were both vying for the same job and he told lies about me. Do good to him, pray for him, love him. See, if I were telling you that, you might get away with it. But again, this is not a suggestion. Pray for those who spitefully use you and persecute you. Not too long ago, a little over a year ago, a friend of mine was telling people that since we had moved to Indianapolis and we hadn't been to his house, that I didn't like him anymore. He spread it in different states. I went to preach where he went every Sunday. When I showed up, I was looking forward to seeing him. No, they're gone. Well, somebody told me, one of the members told me that he said he left because of you. Because you hadn't been to his house since you moved here. And I thought, well, isn't that a two-way street? He hadn't been to mine. Isn't that a silly thing? Well, we had a little confab. We met together. Should we have done that? Yeah. You have aught against your brother? Yeah. And that's all settled. But that could have turned into a real war, couldn't it? Friendship ended, hate, go to hell over that? No, I'm not going to do that. Maybe it's warm in here, but hell's a lot hotter, isn't it? Sure is. Verse 45, here's why you do that. Remember we underlined the word that this morning in several verses? You do these things in verse 44 that you may be sons of your Father in heaven. And all that Jesus told us to do, He did Himself. I worked for a boss who said, Mo, he said, I will not have you do anything that I haven't done myself. Well, that's fair. Did Jesus do that? Did He love His enemies? What did He say on the cross? On the cross. Father, forgive them. Can I do that? Bless those who curse you. Every day He faced it. Enemies of the Jews. Do good to those who hate you. Did He? Yes, He did. Pray for them. Yes, He did. And He tells us so we can be children of our Father. Are we obeying God? Are we salt and light of Matthew chapter 5, verses 13 through 16? Ye are the salt of the earth. Ye are the light of the world. You know, when we go home and turn the lights on, let's listen and see if they come on. Do we say that? No. Light works quietly, doesn't it? Salt. Next spring, if the tomatoes ever ripen, and we put salt on it, do we say, oh, listen? No, we don't do it. Salt and light work quietly, don't they? We do not do what we do for to be seen of men. We're just like the Pharisees and the scribes. Jesus said, don't do that. Don't pray to be seen. Don't do what you do to be seen of men, for verily they have their reward. That's here. Are we the salt and light? He said, let them see your good works. What you're going to do. Again, hey, everybody looking? Everybody? I'm going to do a good work. I want you to know about it. Okay? If I give money to the treasury, it's Brother Hafley that gives the most. See? Here's my big check. Verily I have my reward. Don't I? If I do things to be seen or heard by men, not going to work. Jesus said you do it to glorify God, not yourself. If what I do, I glorify me, wrong person. Wrong individual. So let them see your good works. Galatians 6 and verse 9. Let us not be weary in well-doing. You know what he told us to not be weary? Because you can be weary. You can be weary. You can be tired. And you might think, and a lot of people have thrown in the towel, haven't they? Have given up the ship and lost their soul. Let us not grow weary while doing good. For in due season, in God's time, not yours or mine, we shall reap if we do not lose heart. The King James Version says, if you don't faint. One version said, if you don't flag. I didn't know what that meant. Don't be weary in well-doing. Do not flag. Well, then somebody explained to me. You know what the white flag's all about? Raise the white flag. Seemed like the cowboys in the old cowboy movies, the cowboy would get trapped behind a rock or something. He always had a white hanky tie on his rifle, and he'd wave it. It means I'm giving up. And that's what Paul says here. Do not give up, no matter what happens. Couldn't Jesus have thrown in the towel? Couldn't Paul have thrown in the towel? 2 Corinthians chapter 11, 22. All the beatings and shipwreck and hunger and cold and starvation and imprisonment that he endured. Could he have thrown in the towel? Could have. Would it have prospered him? Not at all. Are we obeying God? John 13, 34 and 35. Listen. Jesus said, a new commandment I give to you, that you love one another as I have loved you. Well, Jesus, how much did you love us? John 3:16 come to mind. For God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son. To what? To die for us, so that we might live. Romans chapter 5, about verse 8, while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. Not while we were good, honest people, while we were yet sinners. He died for me. He died for me. Ephesians 5 and verse 25, husbands, love your wives. Here's how much He loved us, just as Christ also loved the church and gave Himself for her. You remember how He died? You remember how He lived. The day of His crucifixion wasn't the only day that He suffered. He was a man of sorrows. How do I know? Isaiah 53. Acquainted with grief, not just at the hour of His death, but His entire ministry. The three philosophies of life in this story. The first, the robbers, and they said, what is thine is mine, and I'll take it. Thank you very much. And then to those priests and the Levite, their theory was, what is mine, and I'm going to keep it. You ever seen two little ones fighting over a toy? One word they're saying. What are they saying? Mine. Mine. course, I never did that. Yeah. My brothers aren't here to tell me the truth. Mine. And that was theirs. What's mine's mine, I'm keeping. The robber said, what's yours is mine, and I'll take it. And what the Good Samaritan said, well, what did he say? What is mine is yours, and I'll give it to you. Could he have had excuses like the others? Sure could have. One of these is mine. One of these philosophies, one of these three, the robbers or the priest and Levite or the Good Samaritan. One of those philosophies is mine. Mo, which one is it? By their fruits, Jesus said, you shall know them. By their fruits. The hurting men, we know their fruits. They may have been rewarded for temporary gain. Or the heedless men, the priest and the Levite that did nothing. How could they live with themselves? Or the helpful man. Don't you sleep better knowing? Do you know who's helped more than anybody when you do good? You. When you visit somebody, well, Brother Hafley, I don't know what to say. Go visit some older person. You know who's going to come out feeling better about it? You. I do not know how many times while we lived here, those 16 wonderful years, that I got to go to some elderly people's homes, of which I am now one. And I come home and tell Judy, you will not believe the good things that we talked about and I heard today. How uplifted I was. You'll be the one. If you go to the hospital and you walk out on your own, you ever thank God for that? Thank you, God, that I can dress myself. And Judy's not here to help me. You ever thank God? I can feed myself. I can lie down and go to sleep peacefully. Is that a blessing? When upon life's billows you are tossed. What's the name of that song? Count your many blessings. Name them one by one. The devil's going to throw roadblocks in your way. He's going to try to trick you, trap you, tease you, test you in every way to get you to be a priest or a Levite in this story. But let's all dedicate our lives to being like the Good Samaritan. Are we excuse givers? Remember, Jesus tells us about the great supper by the Master. And He invited the people to come, and they all with one accord began to make excuse. I've bought a piece of ground. How many of you would do that? Buy a piece of ground without ever looking at it? And say, I can't come because I bought a piece of ground. You've got to be kidding me. It's like the farmer went to his neighbor. He said, I need to borrow your rope. And the farmer said, well, I'd like to let you have it, but I've got to tie down my truck with it. Do what? Yeah, I've got to tie down my truck. He said, you don't have to tie down your truck. He said, I know. I just don't want you to have my rope, and one excuse is as good as another. Bought a piece of ground, and I can't come. Or other, I bought some oxen. I got to go test them. Really? I've bought a car sight unseen, spent a lot of money. I'd like to come to your supper. I got to go test out this car I bought. Or I married a wife. May sound good to the giver, excuse giver, but what? You can read Jesus' reply to those excuses, those flimsy excuses. Shame on them. What is the question today? What's in your wallet? What's in your safe? What's in your excuse bag? Too busy? Troubles of my own? Too tired? Man, I've worked all week and I'm tired, and this is the only time I can get some rest. Or I got troubles of my own. Do you think you got problems? One fellow told me, you think you got problems. You don't know what problems are. Well, I told him, my problems to me are as big to me as yours are to you. We do know what problems are, don't you? I think every one of us in here could write a book. You think, well, my life has just been smooth sailing, not a problem. And really, I want to meet you. The devil's going to make sure there's problems in your life. Just don't give him ammunition. Like I said earlier, don't know what to say. Is there a book in a library that tells you on this situation? Turn to page 72. On this situation, turn it here. Here's what you say. Do you know what you hear at a funeral home? If you listen, a lot of that. Hugging. Is it what they said? No, it's the fact that they're there. They came. One young family said, I don't want to take my children to funeral. Are they not going to see death? Are you not going to die? To teach them, you don't have to try to comfort others. What's wrong with that theory? Don't know what to do? Oh, last one there. Brother somebody else. Is there somebody in here named that? Brother else? First name somebody? I've never met him. Have you? No. He's not in any congregation, just waiting for somebody else to do it. Well, the elders will do it, or the preacher will do it, or the deacons will do it, or Sister so-and-so will do it. What if somebody who not attending got several phone calls? And I don't mean, if you don't get yourself down here, we're going to withdraw from you. Now, that day may come when that needs to be said, but not on your first call. I've told the members here, my mom used to go home Sunday morning. 2 teenage boys. You know what we were? We were starving to death. It had been a long time since Cheerios. And she'd go right to the wall, to that yellow phone on the wall. Start dialing numbers. Hello? We missed you this morning. Is there anything we can do? If it was an excuse, like, well, we let the kids stay up and watch the late show, and they just couldn't get up this morning, Sister Hafley. Well, Sister Hafley turned on them and told them what they needed to hear. And discouraged us just laying out because we couldn't get the kids up. My foot. What is that teaching those children? Next Saturday night, we're going to do the same thing. Yes, sir. Mom didn't go. We didn't go. We don't have to go. And they got school Monday, so they couldn't go Sunday night because they're still tired. Oh, really? What if you were robbed and beaten? What if you'd been that fella on the road and you heard somebody coming? Oh, good. I'm about to die. You can be that way. You're so weak. You're so lost so much blood, barely conscious, but you see somebody's coming and they pass by. Another comes, stops. You hear them stop. Oh, come on over, help me. And they leave. And then a third comes and gives aid. Just saying. Am I like the lawyer trying to justify myself? We all need to ask ourselves this. And if we as we pray, and Randy prayed, make application of the things we learn. Yeah, it was for somebody else. I didn't need that lesson tonight. Well, I'll tell you who did. Yes, sir. We're about done. Hang on. Anyone remember what Jesus said in Matthew 25? Then the king will say to those on His right hand, Come, you blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. Do you want to hear those words? Shake your head this way. Yes, I do. I want to hear those beautiful words. Come, ye blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. 35, For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you took me in. I was naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came to me. Then the righteous will say to Him, Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you drink? When did we see you a stranger and take you in, or naked and clothe you? Or when did we see you sick or in prison and come to you? When did we do this to you? And the king will answer and say to them, Assuredly I say to you, inasmuch as you did it to one of the least of these my brethren, you did it to me. Remember what Jesus said to Saul on the road to Damascus? Saul, Saul, why persecutest thou me? He knew what that individual was doing, didn't he? And as we said this morning, He knows where you are, and not only where you are and what you're doing, but what you're thinking. Is He ever going to shut up? I'm hungry, I'm tired, I got work tomorrow. Is that where you are? Or is this lesson burning a hole in our stubborn minds? How you doing? When you read the story of the Good Samaritan, put yourself there. One of these character situations, whether you're the one that's been robbed, whether you're the robber, whether you're the priest and the Levite, or whether you're the Good Samaritan. Well, if you're not the Good Samaritan, can you change that? Yes, you can. You sure can. You hear of somebody's needs, do thou likewise. Okay? We get done pretty well what we want to get done. If I want to go somewhere, you better believe I'll find the means, the method, the way. If I want to help people, quit thinking about the me generation, and do unto others as you would have them do to you. Do unto others as the Lord would have you to do to others. I was going to say you could walk out in the cold, but you can't because it's warm out there. But it's coming. Let's beat the heat of eternal torment and go to eternal life because we've done the will of the Lord. We fed Him, we clothed Him, we visited Him, we helped Him. You think He doesn't see? You think He doesn't know? Yes, He does. Yes, He does. You be that one. You be that Good Samaritan. Young people, you help your schoolmates. You've seen the runners in a race, and one of them will fall, and one of the runners will stop and pick him up. Wow. You know what Mo'd like to think he would do? If I stop, I won't have a chance of winning. Who's the winner? Who's the real winner, folks? Who's the real winner? Let's be among the winners and inherit that kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world by doing the will of the Lord. If you've not done it and you know what you must do to be baptized into Christ, to have those sins that will kill you, send you to eternal torment, have them washed away through the blood of the Lamb, do it right now while we stand, while we sing.